Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed.
Okay, let's really get into what's been unfolding kind of behind the scenes in Ukraine's political sphere. We're aiming to look past the daily headlines today.
Yeah, dig a bit deeper.
Exactly. Uncover some of these currents that seem to be destabilizing things from within, even while the external fight continues.
Right.
The goal here is to grasp the sheer complexity of it all. Whispers about leadership changes, the tough realities people are facing.
It really does feel like a critical moment, doesn't it? Sort of hangs in the balance. We've seen different takes, but they all point to a nation under, well, immense pressure. You've got shifts in international backing, internal political fights, massive societal impacts. It's a really tangled web.
So let's start with one of the big ones, this idea that Washington sees General Zaluzhnyi as the most likely person to succeed, Volodymyr Zelensky. That's significant.
It is, and the backstory is key. General Zaluzhnyi, he was the commander-in-chief, right?
Yeah.
And back in autumn 2023, he gave that interview calling the conflict a stalemate.
I remember that. Caused quite a stir.
It did. And just 3 months later, Zelensky dismissed him. Then, only a month after that, Zaluzhnyi is appointed ambassador to London. Now, word is he's just, doing his job there quietly, diligently.
And there's also the suggestion floating around that U.S. President Trump has already settled on a successor.
That's part of the picture being painted, yeah.
That whole sequence is fast, really fast, and it feels like there's more going on. We even heard this statement supposedly from a U.S. official involved saying, if Zelensky, quote, refuses to leave voluntarily, and this is the most likely scenario, he will be removed by force. The choice is his.
Wow.
That's incredibly blunt language. What could be driving that kind of talk, especially right now?
What's interesting is this perspective apparently shared by quite a few in Washington and Kyiv. It's this conviction that the air war with Russian President Putin's forces, the escalation, it has to stop, that there's still maybe a window to reach some kind of agreement. So these leadership discussions, they might not just be internal politics.
They're tied into a strategic push for an exit ramp.
That seems to be the underlying thought, yeah. It connects the internal dynamics to the wider conflict strategy.
Okay, that sets a very serious stage. But stepping back from that external pressure, what about inside Ukraine? We're hearing the government in Kyiv is dealing with escalating scandals, public trust falling. What's driving that?
Well, there's this belief, apparently held by Russian President Putin, that he pushed forward because his intelligence saw Ukraine as nearing collapse.
Based on what?
Things like running out of recruits, soldiers just completely exhausted, and this sense that military aid from the U.S. was drying up, maybe becoming limited to just air defense. So these internal weaknesses, they feed into external strategies.
And the public mood seems to back that up. I mean, think about this statistic. October 2022, 88% of Ukrainians thought they'd be a prosperous EU nation within 10 years.
Optimism was high then.
Incredibly high. Now, only 47% feel that way. Many more fear depopulation, economic collapse. And this one's stark. 70% believe their own leaders are profiting from the war.
70%?
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge swing, a real collapse of faith.
And that connects right back to this grim saying, corruption kills and leads to lost wars. We've seen a surge in scandals just recently that underline this.
Like what?
Take two vice prime ministers. Oleksiy Chernyshov, he handled regional development. Alexander Kubrikov, critical infrastructure. Both absolutely vital roles, right?
Especially now.
Exactly. And they're reportedly under investigation. Embezzlement, even treason. We also heard Zelensky apparently tried to dismiss Major General Budanov, the military intelligence chief.
Because he was getting too popular.
That's the suggestion, and apparently pressure from the U.S. Embassy stopped it. So you see these power struggles simmering alongside the corruption.
And it's not just about money, is it? We're seeing arrests, searches, targeting Zelensky's own supporters. Suggests a pretty fierce political fight within Kyiv itself.
It paints a picture of an administration maybe willing to push aside critics home or abroad without worrying too much about how it looks globally.
Right.
Look at the arrest of Vitaly Shabunin. He's a big name, anti-corruption activist, arrested for draft evasion and fraud. That caused a real stir.
What was his take?
After the arrest, he basically said Zelensky's using the conflict to take, quote, first but confident steps towards corrupt authoritarianism.
Strong words. And then there's the Bureau of Economic Security.
Yeah, the administration reportedly blocked a new independent head for that agency. It's a powerful body, but its reputation's already damaged, accused of going after Zelensky's political rivals. Raises accountability questions,
Definitely.
And there's this quote. It's attributed to a former cabinet member, someone who used to strongly back Zelensky. It's pretty piercing.
What does it say?
Ukraine has two enemies, two Vladimirs, Zelensky and Putin. Putin destroys Ukraine from outside and Zelensky from inside, undermining the will to fight and morale.
Wow. That's heavy.
It is. And the perspective behind it suggests human rights violations, opponents suppressed, wealthy potential opposition backers having assets seized, media silenced.
And the irony, the argument goes,
is that this Putinization, as they call it, is being funded by the West.
Chilling. And under martial law, these sanctions, over 5,000 Ukrainians affected, assets frozen.
Yeah, initially pitched as a way to stop pro-Russian influence, right?
Yeah.
But now it seems widely used to just silence opponents, control the media narrative.
Like those YouTube channels shut down last month, critics of Zelensky.
Exactly, 3 of them. And the former head of the National Bank, Kirill Shevchenko, he reportedly warned about this danger, said, censorship protects authoritarian leaders and uncontrolled power breeds dictatorship.
Which brings us to Zelensky's term, technically expiring back in May last year.
Right. The official line is you can't hold elections during wartime. And many agree. But you're hearing more frustration about opponents being exiled, jailed, sanctioned.
There's a contrast being drawn, isn't there?
Yeah, someone brought up Churchill in 1940, inviting the opposition leader to be his deputy, uniting parliament, whereas Zelensky is seen by some critics as grabbing power by all possible means.
To the point where one opposition lawmaker compared him to Kim Jong-un and Ukraine to North Korea.
That comparison was reportedly made, yes. It shows the depth of the concern about democratic norms right now.
So all these internal issues, leadership questions, corruption, suppression, how does that play out for ordinary people, for the military effort? We hear about growing anger over recruitment methods.
Yeah.
This thing called busification.
Yeah, that term itself tells you something. It refers to how harsh authorities are apparently being, grabbing new recruits, sometimes literally forcing them into vans for the front lines. Resentment, resistance, it's growing.
It sounds brutal.
And it's different from the Russian approach, which uses contractors. Ukraine has universal mobilization for men over 25 unless they're in essential jobs. Social media, it's full of videos. Recruitment officers forcing men into vans, sometimes reportedly even at gunpoint.
So many conscripts just don't want to be there.
That seems clear, yes. Unwilling to fight.
The desertion numbers are just staggering. In the last 6 months, over 107,000 new criminal cases for desertion.
And since 2022.
The total is over 230,000. I mean, that's more deserters than the entire active military of the UK, France, and Germany combined.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just a statistic. It points to a fundamental crisis in morale and manpower. How do you sustain a defense like that?
It's hard to imagine. And the soldiers who are still fighting.
Exhausted. Some have been serving continuously for 3.5 years. They tried to pass a bill for demobilization after 3 years, but it got blocked.
Why?
Fear. Fear of not having anyone to replace them. Plus, remember, men aged 18 to 60 generally can't leave the country without special permission. Been that way since February 2022.
And the wider population, millions have left.
Over 6.8 million reportedly left the country since the start. Another 8 million displaced internally. Add that up, and it's something like 40% of the working population.
40%. A massive drain on the country's future.
And that directly impacts the economy, alongside rampant inflation. It's pushing more people into poverty. Around 8.8 million Ukrainians are now below the poverty line.
That's up from 6 million before the war started.
Right. So you've got this demographic hit, economic hardship. It's an incredibly fragile mix.
What about the external help? That reconstruction conference in Rome. The big hope was this multi-billion-dollar fund BlackRock was developing.
Yes, they've been working on it since 2022. But earlier this year, BlackRock apparently announced they'd close the project. Reason given, lack of interest.
A lack of interest. That's blunt and pretty worrying.
It is, especially when you contrast it with the words of support you hear from leaders like Merz in Germany, Maloney in Italy, Tusk in Poland. Assurances, promises.
But the actual money pledged.
Well, the EU reportedly managed to scrape together about 2.3 billion euros for infrastructure. which, when you compare it to the World Bank's estimate of needing $524 billion.
It's a drop in the ocean.
Exactly. A huge gap between the talk and the financial reality.
Seems like even inside Ukraine, there's a realization that things need to change fundamentally. That former cabinet member reportedly said the whole political class knows Ukraine needs a new system because people just no longer want to live in perpetual fear.
But it's complex. Instead of helping figure out a power transition, the EU seems to be, well, looking the other way on these internal problems.
So why would that be?
One major factor is fear among Zelensky's allies, ministers included. Fear of what happens to them if he loses power, prosecution, exile.
Because his team made many enemies.
Apparently so, among the Ukrainian political elite. So this fear of ending up in exile or prison, it creates this perverse incentive, doesn't it?
To what?
To, as the suggestion goes, line their pockets while they can, which just digs the corruption problem deeper.
It really is a vicious cycle. And it feels like the conclusion here is that outside help can't fix these core internal issues, the personnel shortages, the crisis of legitimacy for Zelensky.
No external force can solve those, really.
And maybe most worrying, outsiders can't stop this cycle of arrests, cracking down on opposition, shutting down media, actions that seem to be eroding faith in the military, in Zelensky's leadership, more than almost anything else.
Right. It makes the internal battleground just as critical, if not more so, than the external one.
What really stands out is how all these internal dynamics, the leadership battles, the corruption, the disillusionment, the repression, how they could potentially undermine the entire war effort from within.
More effectively, perhaps, than direct military pressure. It really forces you to think about where the deepest vulnerabilities lie, how much a nation's internal health affects its resilience.
So we've covered a lot today, really delving into this intricate and frankly concerning picture of the pressures shaping Ukraine right now.
Yeah, it's this complex interplay, isn't it? The politics, the economy, the human toll, all converging at what feels like a really pivotal moment. It leaves you wondering, what's the long-term impact going to be? How will all this shape Ukraine's path ahead?
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.